Shall we just start with the imagery here? Can you take a beautiful ocean, seaside location, maybe somewhere you've been before, somewhere where you can watch the tide coming in and the tide going out? And then in your mind, like you're a two-dimensional artist, like a painter, collage artist, I want you to overlay your refrigerator. So seaside and refrigerator. And that is the picture for this full Libra moon in Pisces. The fancy part of this moon is that it will coincide with a lunar eclipse, not visible by folks in the United States, but if you are in Australia, India, South Africa, you might get a glimpse of that full moon coming up pretty soon. So I'm recording this the morning of this lunar eclipse, and in just a few hours, it will have happened. It will happen. And what that eclipse does, as far as I know, I'm just going with my feelings, and this is not my specialty. No, I mean, going with my feelings is my specialty. It's not my specialty to know astrologically what this means. But there's this sense of intensity, of really going deep with what this full moon means. A lot of folks have said this is a good time to close chapters, to let things go, as a preparation for a new beginning that is not new to you at all, but has a thread that's been coming and going through your life, but it has been subterranean. And this thread is being pulled to the surface, as if you are weaving the tapestry of your life. And there are some threads that have been supportive layers, and now is their moment to come to the surface, to be seen for what they've always been. So they've always been there. This is not a new chapter like you're writing a new book. This is still your life. And it's sort of seeing your life turned around. Seeing it from a different perspective is a nice way of thinking of it. So let's get back to that imagery real quick. You're on a seaside. Maybe you are your refrigerator. Maybe I'm going too wacky here. But here's the thing. Full moons increase tides, both on the high tide side and the low tide side. It's just a gravitational thing. And so imagine that this beach has been littered with some of your emotional flotsam and jetsam. That's what my grandmother used to call it, flotsam and jetsam, the stuff that would wash up on the beach. Or the little bits of things that you can sort of tuck away for later. It's so easy to tuck things away for later, especially when it has to do with feeling and feeling uncomfortable, feeling sad. And this is a moment where the tide comes in and takes those things off their shelves or off the uppermost part of the shore and has it get flushed around, washed around, back and forth in the tide for a while. And how this relates to your refrigerator, and this is because I was talking to my friend Stephanie and trying to describe this feeling of the yuckiest yuck coming up for us right now. And I said, it's like you had this beautiful food and you put it in your refrigerator and you thought maybe you were going to eat it and digest it, but then time passed and then the food started to sort of slowly rot in the back of your refrigerator. And there is some food that is fine. You know, it's meant to be fermented, but most of our stuff is not that's in that fridge. And so right now is a time to reach to the farthest back corners of the fridge. I do know a few people who would never let this happen, but I am not one of those people. You can find some pretty gross things in the back of my fridge. Find those things in the back of your fridge, pull them out, look at them. You know, you can say thank you or have a ritual about it. And I'm talking symbolically for the stuff that's in our inner fridge, right? So you can say thank you. I appreciate that you hung in there. I will not be eating you. I will not be digesting. This is time for me to bypass the digestion and let this go straight to the compost pile. It doesn't have to go through us. So do you understand that? There's some things that we have put on shelves, we have put to the back of the fridge thinking, well, maybe we'll get to it. And sometimes those things aren't for us at all. We don't have to do that work of digesting it. And we can just let it go. It can be hard, disgusting, uncomfortable to do that cleaning out, but just know you don't have to eat it. That's not to eat. So for some reason, to me, that feels like a relief. I can let it go. Sometimes we have to let things really turn putrid before we're willing to let them go. And I'm laughing because this is like how we be with our thoughts and feelings and emotions. And sometimes we just can't digest our lives. And we do it in different ways. So this high tide is the fingers reaching farther than they've reached before and going into some really hurty places possibly in us. We might find ourselves reaching back in time and wondering, why are we even thinking about this incident that happened 15 years ago? And if you think of it as a dusting or a clearing out, that you don't have to relive that experience, but it's a moment for you to let it come through your conscious awareness and your attention and let it move out with the energy of this moon. So, what is going on anyway? Hello and welcome, or maybe welcome back. I'm your host, Anne Headley, and this is my podcast, What is Going On Anyway, where I take some time every 2 weeks to check in on the moon, whether it's new or full, and this time it is full. As an intuitive, I use my imagination and my intuition to tell a story by surfing the present moment and sharing that with you. Some call this channeling, but my experience is that it's more of a hybrid, and it's possibly a very good way to brainstorm for the future. I hope this inspires you to look for your own waves of presence, your own waves of surfing the present moment. Ultimately, I hope this becomes an internal revolution that I believe is necessary to usher us into the future collaboration of being here together. I'm especially interested in my own and others' experiences of spirituality and the question, what are we here for? And what is the meaning of life? So thank you for joining me here for all of that, especially because these are sometimes unanswerable questions. Maybe they're more interesting because they're quite unanswerable. And I find it really interesting that we often, I wouldn't say pretend, but maybe there's a little pretense to it. We act as though this is not a problem, that we have no idea what we're here for and why. And the best answers I ever get are that we are here for love. I've been listening to this song by Benjamin Gordon called Back to You. I've got it playing here in the background.
Everything. Love is everything because love makes the world go round.
Love makes the world go round. Love is everything.
Love is the foundation of our soul.
Love is the foundation of our soul.
Love is the greatest feeling that any person can have.
I'll link the song so that you can listen to it.
Someone or something is the greatest feeling.
So if love is what is making the world go round, love is what we're here for. If love is the answer to what is the meaning of life, which works for me, that kind of fits, then what is it that we don't yet know about love. I didn't think I was going to be talking about this. I have these, I don't have them anymore. I had foster kittens for the summer, and the foster kittens were a surprise to me. I talked about this a few episodes back. I got a call saying I was on a list to be a foster mom. I didn't know I was on this list, but turns out a few years ago when we got our two lovely cats, Alaska and Cooper, I had to be on the foster list because we took them home sooner than when they were neutered. So we had to sign a contract to be foster parents while we took care of them before they were neutered and we could officially adopt them. That's how I got on the list. So when I got the call to be a foster mom for kittens this summer, it was a bit of a surprise. But they had an overload of kittens. And I took the first round, a mom and 6 babies, and it was wild and chaotic and really helped me connect with my 13-year-old in a beautiful way. It was love. Love for kittens, love for each other, love for the chaos of kittens and the wildness and the vulnerability of them. And we sent those kittens back to be adopted, and they were all adopted, including the mom. That was a happy story. And then I said yes to 2 more kittens, and I absolutely fell in love with this kitten, George. He was such a tiny little peanut with a big belly and a stumpy little tail, and his brother, Shadow. I loved them. I loved them so much that I filled out an adoption application. I thought I was going to keep them. And I went back and forth all summer long trying to figure out what I was going to do and how could I even make this decision. Because on the one hand, you don't say no to that kind of love and cuteness. And on the other hand, my life is quite full. And I'm not trying to add more responsibilities to my life. Ultimately, the animals that I say yes to are mine. They are not my children's. And so I felt the weight of that and had many discussions, and my heart wanted to say yes to these kittens. I loved having them around me. And I have asked everyone I know for advice about making this decision. And I have gone back and forth hundreds of times in my mind. There would be one moment where they would be both purring and laying on me, and I thought, I can't live without this, to moments of cleaning poop when I really need to be heading out the door and thinking, my life doesn't need to be this chaotic. I'm pausing only because I don't know how deeply I want to go into this. Decisions that I've made before in my life about bringing, somehow for me, this decision related back in my life to decisions around when I was going to bring children into the world and how I made that decision and who I made that decision with. And there was some real heartache around that, around making that decision not based on just the joy and the love of having children in my life, but based on almost getting permission. Right? Do I have to go into that even more for you to understand? It is not the decision of just one person, right? So with these kittens, it was almost as if I was revisiting some of those decisions that I've made 5 times in my life around children and having it be with total sovereignty. Do I want this? Do I not want this? Of course, there's a place in my heart that wants it all. And I really struggled around the idea that I couldn't have everything that I wanted. And then I came to this really difficult knowing, this really uncomfortable knowing, actually, that in my life, I have substituted caregiving with love, that having more things to give, to take care of, meant that I was experiencing more love. In some cases, this is true. I'm not taking away from that. But what I'm saying is there are avenues and places in my life that I have not explored because I was too busy caretaking. I had filled my life with caregiving, and not just people, right? There's so many ways of doing this caregiving. We can have standards that we keep around how our gardens are tended to, and that is a kind of caregiving that keeps us from other things. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I am in so much admiration of those of you who have these beautiful, neat, and tidy gardens. But do you know what I'm getting at here? That there are these crevices in our lives that we haven't explored because we busied ourselves with almost substitutions for those explorations of where else is there love for me in the world? Where else is there a way for me to explore my own self besides this one way that I know is a guaranteed outlet or a guaranteed inlet for me to plug into and receive that feeling. And it's a beautiful, delicious, wonderful feeling to caretake so beautifully. And also, I think that turning that upside down, which is what we keep being asked to do, can you look at this from another angle? Can you see this from the inside out? That there's some internal, personal caregiving that involves having a limit. And so, is this all justification for me to have made the decision that I made around the kittens? So the day comes, I postponed this so long. They were neutered and they were supposed to go back. And I said, could I have longer? I haven't decided. So I got 2 more weeks. And then they had this kitten fair, and I decided I needed to bring them to the kitten fair. And even on that day, I cried, I sobbed. I had those, like the that kind of cry all that whole morning. And thankfully, I had the day to myself. I didn't have to interface with anyone as I was letting something really deep go inside of me. I brought the kittens in, and it was hard. It was really hard and a little embarrassing because I was fully emotional at the shelter. And telling these cats, it still makes me sad. Telling them how much I love them and that, I would never stop loving them and that I would extend my love to them as long as they're here and beyond. And that they were going to go make people really, really happy and be able to share that love. And I also told them to never expect less than what they got at our house. And I said, demand that you're treated well. Demand it. And then I let them go. And I walked out of that shelter, and there was a man coming in, and he was saying, I'm here to drop off some kittens. And I looked beyond him, and there was a woman in the car, and I could feel that she was in the place that I was in. And I walked over to the car, and I knocked on her window, and she saw my face, and she just got out, and we hugged, and we cried together. And this is not something that you get to do with strangers very much. Just experiencing grief together. And, for me, it's just layered with my whole life of grief. It's not just about these kittens. And obviously for her, it was the same. We were just a puddle. And then I walked back back in with her because, of course, I needed to see her kittens. And she had 3 gorgeous little kittens. And she was so proud of them. And she had made this notebook for them. And she had made a little outline for each cat describing like who they were and what their personalities were like and what they liked and what they didn't like. And of course she asked if they could all be adopted together, which was my dream for my 2 as well. And we exchanged numbers and said that we needed to create a foster mom grief bereavement group, which we did. And somehow it was that connection that made me realize that I wasn't doing this. I wasn't alone in this. And that also, that was a room of 50 kittens and they were gorgeous and every one of them was wonderful. And I could see my kittens so proudly. I mean, they were relaxed in that space. We had done a really good job of giving them lots of different experiences and opportunities. They just did not seem freaked out. However, I left. I cried more that day. I missed them. I texted with this woman. I'm going to say her name is Kay because it starts with a K. And at the end of the day, I thought to myself, I can't leave them there, right? I still hadn't let go. So I drove back. And I found out that they had been adopted together to a lovely woman who wasn't sure if she wanted an older cat or younger cats. She only wanted one, but they were convinced that, or she got convinced that the 2 could go together. And I've been thinking about them and trying to reach out to them telepathically and let them know that this great new adventure is in their hands. And I still miss them. But I feel good about this decision. Boy, that was long-winded. And the reason for this, long story, is to say, I don't think that we have explored love very much. I mean, there's some of us who have, right? There are the bell hooks of the world who have explored love in so many facets, but I'm just saying a lot of us, and across the board culturally, I think there's more room to find out what does love mean to us. If love indeed is the thing that makes the world go round, and if love is one of the answers to the meaning of life, what do we know about it? What do you know about love? And there's something here about saying goodbye. And this eclipse season coming up, that we've got this lunar eclipse in 2 weeks, we've got a solar eclipse. And there's something around eclipses which are real chapter enders, goodbye sayers. And you know what it's like to say goodbye and how we sometimes avoid saying goodbye. Goodbyes are these moments where our hearts do this expansion and sometimes they crack a little bit. I was thinking the other day how flying is so emotional for me because there's usually a goodbye at one side of it. And if you can just take a moment, and I'm doing it now too, to just think about those goodbyes and how sometimes we say goodbye without being physically together. There are people that we have to say goodbye to on our own. There's circumstances, there's situations that we have to do the goodbye alone. And then there are the magical goodbyes that can be heartbreaking, but we actually get to share this moment with another person, another animal, where we really get to say goodbye. And that does something to us, where we're experiencing the love. And it hurts, And I think that's a place to cherish even though it hurts, and to try to expand into, to hold more space for the love that exists there. I know it's painful, but there's also this vessel of love that's holding that. And I think that there is something like a magical potion for us inside of that. That we really are, I think, learning about how to hold more love in our heart. Learning about how to walk through the world with a compassionate heart. Surely there's some of us who are more able to hold that space for longer. For me, it's about being compassionate with myself. It's really about giving myself grace, time, space to honor my innermost innocence. And I like to say it that way, the innocence inside. Because that part of me is the part that I readily, easily suppress. And I am a performer, one way or another. I sometimes do spoken word, and sometimes I'm doing physical dancing performance. Okay. And somehow I'm able to get like in front of people, and usually I'm able to do this, that I can dance, I can have choreography that I'm doing, and it doesn't make me feel that tender. But when I use my voice, so I think this is probably a throat chakra issue. But when I use my voice and I'm in front of people, I often I don't know what's going on, but I just cry. I just cry, which is why I love doing this podcast, because most of the time, even though today is not a good example of that, most of the time I can just do the podcast and I don't have to cry. And there's something inside of that I'm working through of how do I use my voice and let myself be seen and let myself crack open and expand or breathe into it. And I don't have to be emotional about it. I don't know what happens to me. It's almost like I get struck by how beautiful the moment is, how incredible it is to feel my voice being heard, to really being seen. And so it's like there's some kind of healing going on there for me. And I want to do it until it doesn't get me anymore. And I also am so tired of trying to stand up and like read a poem or recite a poetry of mine and crying. It's really irritating. So I don't quite know what that is. But this last weekend, I took a workshop with Deborah Hay. And one of the and Deborah Hay, she's quite wonderful. Let me just read you her bio quick, okay? Okay, actually, I'm not going to read her bio because it's very long. I'm going to read the Wikipedia. Deborah Hay, born 1941, is an American choreographer, dancer, dance theorist, and author working in the field of experimental postmodern dance. She is one of the original founders of the Judson Dance Theater. She is known for her minimalist, slow, and experimental work with both untrained and professional dancers, often employing stressful conditions and focusing on perception and embodied knowledge. So maybe that helps you understand her a little better. The workshop was facilitated for Deborah Hay by Janine Durning, who has studied with her for many, many years. And it was really about perception and performance, and it was intense. It was quite hard, actually, to stay with it. She kept relentlessly having us use her technique, which is turn your fucking head, to mean don't get seduced by your own line of dropping away from the present moment. So as an improvisational artist, sometimes you just go down these winding pathways of something that just feels delicious in your body, and you think it must look so beautiful, but really it's just like, kind of silly. And she kept saying, stop that, get back to this moment. And that's exhausting, as you might know from your own spiritual practices. So at the end, we had a solo, each one of us in turn, and there were 20 plus of us who were workshop attendees. So we took the afternoon and each of us had a solo. And when it was time for my solo, I was staying in the present moment. I was turning my fucking head, and here come the tears, right? And so I didn't want to stop it. I didn't want to suppress it. And I didn't want to stay with it either. So I kept doing that activity, which is not a literal turning of your fucking head, but shift. And it was so deeply powerful to perform inside of that space, and also to share the true gratitude that was just pouring out of me. Yeah. Maybe this is the moon. I don't know just how emotional I am right now. So grateful for this woman that still is offering back to the community these beautiful practices that she has developed over her lifetime. And I so deeply wanted to be in this workshop with her, to be in a space with her again. She's in her 80s, so I don't know how many workshops she's going to teach. Maybe hundreds. I don't know. But all I'm saying is that I don't know what the undercurrent is, and it feels like love, and it feels powerful and important to me. So let's go away from my stories and let's get into what does the many oracles, let's see, what does the I Ching have for us around this full moon? And this full moon is not just this full moon, this kind of intense moment now, but it is from here into that new moon. It is the letting go of this kind of intensity as we slide into that new moon, which gives us a chance to begin again, to turn the page and to write a new story on that new moon. But there is a letting go, there's a clearing out that's happening right now. We get 50. The vessel. Our key questions. What is the vessel for transformation? What are you beginning? What will you cook? This marks a new beginning. The sacred vessel is cast and used in the great ceremonies that inaugurate a new dynasty. The spirits are invited to share in the meal it contains, renewing their connections with the people. The vessel provides stable, robust foundations for a new life, and also the crucible where you can expect to be transformed and remade. The vessel contains and transforms. Just as wood becomes fire, or smelted ore becomes a great bronze vessel, or raw ingredients become fragrant food, so the experiences of life can be blended and transmuted into a meaningful whole. Yes. So maybe these unsavory things that have been coming up, and I would say in my conversations with folks in the last 10 days, there have been these really kind of uncomfortable things coming back up to surface. And I don't know that they're coming up to surface to bother us, but they're coming up to surface to be transmuted perhaps into a different kind of whole, not to go away, but to look at them one more time and see how does that weave into the tapestry of my wholeness. We do have changing lines 1, 3, and 4, which take us to hexagram 41, decreasing. Why do you want to make such an offering? How much is truly asked of you? Could this be simpler? And I love that we're moving into this place. Could this be simpler? Could this be a version of you that is just you being seen from another perspective? You're not changing. You're just sort of like rolling on your side, or maybe rolling upside down. And a teensy bit more about decreasing. Even when you have little to give, making offerings is not wrong. Trusting your insight and persevering in your chosen direction, you understand why you are doing this rather than dwelling on what you are giving up. And I can tell you that's what I dream about with this whole kitten situation, that I might understand the why of making the choice in this way rather than continuing to dwell on that joy that I was giving up. You may still wonder how you can do it or how much you are expected to give. But the offering need only be modest, not hundreds of things, just 2 baskets. You are not asked to give beyond your means. This 41, the offering, pairs with 42, the blessing. So it's letting go and abundance circling together. And we're just looking at this letting go place, looking at the, should we say sacrifices? Looking at the difficulties that you've been through in the last 10 days, say, and, right now, and seeing that as an offering to yourself, to your wholeness, rather than difficulties or a letting go, because it is a bit of a letting go, it is a bit of a closing doors, closing chapters. But what if you thought of it as an offering to your wholeness so that you can see more, so that you can awaken parts of yourself that have been waiting for you. I don't want to say dormant exactly, that have been submissive to the louder call of the way you have been. It sounds so final in a way. Of course, we're not different. But sometimes it is just the tiniest shift in perspective that, shifts the whole way that we be in the world. And there's something that is so desiring of change right now that maybe it is the smallest action that each of us takes, that there is a shift towards love and compassion, and that we don't know what's going on the inside for other people, of course, but we can be true to ourselves. We can be honest with our presence, like in that workshop, the performance workshop with Deborah Hay, where it was, keep coming back to yourself, keep coming back. Where are you now? Okay. And how about now? Where are you? All right. And okay, let's do it again. Where are you now? I think I need to pull some cards right now, see what we get. So the first deck that I'm going to use here is the Healing Mantra deck, one that I really love to use this one. It's given me good results. Amplifying abundance. Abundance is my birthright, and I receive it now. Okay, thank you. And then let's go for the answer is simple. That Sonia Choquette one that I love. Stick with it. Stick with it. The card has a picture of a young lad climbing what looks like a beanstalk up into the sky. Stick with it. Okay. That's what I've got for you this time. Thank you so much for being here, of course. You can find me on my website, www.annhedley, ANNHEDLY.com. Thank you for being here and listening all the way through. May you be well, and may you know peace. And may all beings everywhere, whether known to me or you or unknown, may they know peace, and may they be well.